What's going on, YouTube? You already know who it is, baby. It's Yugi's Skull, and I've got you guys covered with yet another YouTube video in regards to the state of affairs with the best deck in the format. Our uh our favorite child here, which is the hero deck. Um Wanted to quickly do this video. I'm hoping it's gonna be a quick one, like potentially, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 at most. Just an additional resource to the hero community in regards to siding patterns. I know a couple of the folks in the community for heroes have probably already covered this, but I just thought to give my 2 cents on the matter and how I actually approach my siding patterns. And then one thing that I think that I could add in terms of value to this video for you guys is post crossover breakers and like how you should be siding and then your tech choices and options for heroes. So I've been testing heroes ever since the new format dropped. So Tempai got completely slaughtered, which was quite exciting. That was quite a tough matchup for heroes, I would say, just simply because it runs so much hand traps and it can literally FTK out of nowhere. And yeah, just to show you guys like my recent track record, I've been, doing decently well with heroes. Majority of my wins are definitely coming through. A couple of losses here and there to like Ryzeal, but nothing too crazy. A lot of times the losses just happen to be in regards to them having like an overwhelming number of hand traps, and then they have like their one card combo starter, like a bonfire, like an ice Ryzeal, and it's just kind of GG's from there. But yeah, in general, like the matchups that I've been seeing the form, like a lot of Malice. I think we have a decent matchup against Malice. We have a really good matchup against Ryzeal as well, if we can get away with escaping the hand traps, things like that. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think the deck is poised to be really good in this upcoming format, especially when Supreme Darkness comes out and we get a lot of our power spells, such as Evil Assault. But obviously, like right now, we don't have those cards, so do keep that in mind that like potentially your siding patterns might differ just a little bit here and there in terms of what you would put in and what you'd put out in regards to the matchup. Um, when those cards obviously drop and like which version of heroes you're playing. Like, are you playing the consolidated version that just runs like Doom Prison and then like three evil assaults, or like two to three evil assaults and then like a you know Dusted Gold, or are you playing like the extended version that plays like the entire evil hero package where you're taking advantage of all like the fusion monsters from the new set, such as I think it's what is it? What's the new one called? Like the Neos Lord as well as like the Infernal Backlash. I'm personally like I think going into the Supreme Darkness format with like this new ban list that just dropped. I'm personally gonna try both. I think if it's gonna be like a tier 2 plus event such as a regional or even like an OTS championship, I'm probably gonna lean more towards the more like competitive lists, such as this one, and hit me up on like Facebook or Insta if you guys want this at Yugi Skull. That's where you guys can find me. Like I'll probably be leaning towards this list of like 43, like pure breakers and just Ash to be able to out Mulch Army Fool Loss. Um, I won't be playing the Mulch Army, I think, in this deck. I just find like sometimes when you sink that sucker in the graveyard. And guys, beware, it's not like an access issue. I do have access to the Fuvalos, but for me, I just found with this deck, like you need every single card in your hand. Like if you were to drop the Fuvalos, it literally is just a turn and skip, and sometimes it actually hurts you as the hero player because you're now down a card and you didn't draw because they either changed their lines of play or they just stopped playing and they held on to their hand traps because they feel like they're confident enough in the cards that they have in their hand, which is going to be primarily hand traps, right? So I'm leaning towards this for like competitive events, but we'll probably also test out like a list of 50 that has like that's maxed out on all the starters, such as Evil Saw, Dusted Gold, and Hero Live, and Ferris, and all that. Like I think this version is also going to catch people off guard because I don't think people are going to understand where they should be hand trapping. For example, when you play a card such as Dark Fusion. they may very well interact with that whole line of play against the evil heroes, thereby essentially insulating the rest of your combo lines that involve the Vision heroes and the Destiny heroes, which is like your traditional combo lines that we're used to prior to Supreme Darkness dropping. Anyways, that's just kind of like the pretext of how I'm thinking about things. So again, my I guess caveat to this video is keep in mind that you know, post Supreme Darkness, our siding patterns might differ just slightly. I don't think it'll be like a big change, but I did want to take time to discuss my mindset and theory behind how I approach siding when it comes to this deck. So yeah, right now I've been for this format playing a deck of 42. It's quite consolidated, it's very consistent, and it has everything going for it. Pure Breaker, with the exception of Ash Blossom, I'm not really too concerned about actually like seeing the Ash Blossom to Ash my opponent's plays. I find against decks such as Malice, for example, it's incredibly hard to hand trap that deck. Even with my like I actually played a competitive Fiendsmith, what do you call it? Fiendsmith voiceless deck, right? And again, just to show you guys that like I've got some depth to me, right? I'm not just a hero player. I play a lot of decks. I played Tempai, I played Voiceless, I played some Fiendsmith variants, played Kashtira, played Tearlaments when it was tier zero, Kashtira when it was tier zero. I've been around the block when it comes to a variety of decks, so I'm giving you guys advice and insights to this deck from a well-rounded perspective of someone who understands the matchups and understands the meta in general for the last, I would say, few years. Yeah, even with this deck where I'm running, I think 13 hand traps, right, which is quite significant for a deck of 42. With 42 hand traps, I'm finding against Malice, it's quite challenging to actually hand trap the deck. So I'm actually quite happy with my deck being completely board breaker centric. Against Malice, it's kind of hard to like when they go full combo, if they go full combo, it's hard to kind of interact. I found it's been quite hard to interact with them. They have cards that like banish, non-targeting and whatnot, so that can be like quite challenging. Um, I think though post sides, our deck absolutely gets a lot better. So I find that matchup quite dice dependent. Like if you go first, I find that deck isn't like it's definitely not Ryzeal, right? It's not, it doesn't have the capacity to have as much starters as possible, in my opinion. Well, from my experience, anyways, it could potentially. It's just I think there's only like what, main card, like nine main engine monsters plus like the three field spells, the Malice and the Underground. So I find with those cards, it's like we're talking about 12 engine pieces here. So they have to supplement the rest of their deck with things such as Allure of Darkness, Golden Sarcophagus. We've seen some Kashtira builds, which is no problem to heroes at all whatsoever. We know exactly how to interact with those cards. So ultimately, I've been finding like if they have like one or two hand traps, I'm good. I am good in terms of like this list powering through those interruptions because those hand traps, if they're in the shape of, Imperm, Effect Veiler, Ash, we tend to have a pretty good, matchup against that. And, we go back to the idea when you're playing a deck that's as close to 40 as possible, and I'd highly recommend that even post Supreme Darkness. When you do get access to Evil Assault, to still play as close to 40 as possible. The the more reliably you can access your Destiny Fusion, if your Vision and Elemental Hero, Stratos, and like AHL get stopped, like if you can't get out Vion and resolve the Vion and add the polymerization, you need to have the ratios in the deck to be able to use your Fusion Destiny as backup. Plasma, if you do have to default back to your Fusion Destiny line, which gives you ultimately DPE and Plasma as we know it, is going to take care of Malice quite easily, just because they do require a lot of effects to resolve on the field that include their main engine monsters, but more importantly, their link monsters also need to resolve their effects. So if you do land on it, you don't get nibbed, you're in luck. You're probably winning that game unless they have some kind of board breaker. Another cool thing to also keep in mind is like if you land on DPE Plasma, and then like let's say they activate their Malice in the Underground, the field spell, do not DPE that thing. Like don't pop it. Just hold your ground. Believe me when I tell you, like Plasma is going to take care of that. What do you call it? That deck quite well, just simply because if they don't have the right breaker, they don't have an imperm on crackback. Once you do develop your board, they're probably in trouble. So you put them on. Better have the out with Plasma or not. But when it comes to your actual end board, I would say your end board has to absolutely be um still I would still end on like Dark Law. You don't need to necessarily end on it if you don't want to, if you feel like it's going to debilitate, your plays against them just because they are a banishment type of deck. But I've always found like even if it's a deck such as let's say Kashtira, like during like the peak of Kashtira format, I found Dark Lock quite good because if your opponent is searching cards, you're gonna rip one out of their hand, which is quite devastating if you think about it. You also have to keep in mind they will be hand trapping you in this hand trap dominant format. Like we're just at the beginning of this format and people are hand trapping. So let's say they go, -1 or 2 due to their hand trap usage when you combo off, you still somehow land on Dark Claw. You're gonna make them lose another card yet again if you do end on like the traditional board of Dark Claw, Sunrise, or Wing Karibo level 6. Yes, you could potentially play that instead of the Liquid Soldier. I'm totally familiar with the that line of play. But your main pieces that you're going to be depending on in terms of playing against them here is going to be actually your DPE and your favorite contact into Neos Wingman. Another thing to keep in mind too is like we're obviously running the droplet. I had one round where like I really like sequenced my interactions effectively. So what he ended up doing was he like normal summoned the Banisher one. What I did was I held because he actually set a trap. And then what I did was I was like, you know what? Let's go for on the set of the trap. I let him use the effect. Then I went essentially uh DPE pop as chain two. He didn't respond, which meant I knew that his set card was actually fake. And then I chained Droplet, actually. I flipped my Droplet and I outed Law. And then I essentially used Law's cost to be able to negate that card. And then I popped his trap card, sending it to the graveyard. So I ultimately like used Dark Law to insulate my lines of play when I was making them, just because I did draw into the one of, and it helped me essentially turn off a lot of the hand drops on, such as Valor, Droll, things like that. I don't recall what they actually had. Maybe we can take a look at it in another video, but ultimately, you could still leverage Law as a potential piece in your combo to be able to insulate yourself from hand traps. But just be mindful, like they might be able to kind of take advantage of the Dark Law as the Malice player if you're gonna be popping their shit and their stuff gets banished, it might potentially put you in a weird position where they're plussing off of that. But the reality is for a lot of the Malice cards, when they do get banished, they have to pay life to actually just special summon them. So it's almost like a perfect offering for your DPE as well as your Neos Wingman off of favorite contact. So in essence, you could almost also try to like use Dark Claw to like bait out their effects, have them have like a couple of bodies on board, and then start blowing things up back into the banishment pile as you see fit. What that also does potentially as well is if they have Bestials in hand, like let's say they top deck the Bestial or like they have more or what have you, they can no longer now potentially use a Bestial to move some of their Malice monsters from the graveyard to the banishment pile, thus activating their effect. So it's almost like you're preemptively making them waste their banishment effects and blowing everything up adequately when you see fit using your DP as well as your Neo Swing, which is going to give you at least one to two, maybe even three pops, depending on your end board. So I don't even think like Dark Law is like that bad to end on against Malice. That's just me. That's just what I've been finding. Like if we establish our main pieces, we're relatively okay. If they go Malice in the Underground, I would just DPE pop that just because that's kind of like four golden sarcophaguses and like one card combos for them to start. It's also a once per turn card with its effect activated on activation of the card itself. So yeah, I would also like save your Neo Swingman play if they have like a random Cyberse link, like a link one, and then like another body or like two bodies, and then blow up the boards because they are kind of like reliant on their normal summon. So yeah, that's just kind of like my two cents. So really just be careful with like the banishment stuff with Dark Law. Dark Law is still important if you want to insulate yourself from hand traps. And yeah, like the mini game here against Malice is to essentially just try to clear their boards. Cool. Now let's talk about siding patterns against Malice, and then we'll talk about Ryzeal because that's the second most popular deck this format, I would say. So post side against Malice, they're probably gonna go first, and their end board is usually like a couple of traps set, and then they'll end on um what is that card? God damn. Anyways, it's like a link four that in the end phase could dump something from the extra deck, and that card essentially gives them like a spell slash trap and negate it by banishing it. Ultimately, like the way they play is like they have their hand traps end of the combo, and then they also have obviously like their set traps that give them additional effects to banish and special summon, and their special summon monsters could also potentially like do some more banishment, non-targeting things like that. Um, It's not a bad deck. It's very like mid-rangey, but that's where like Heroes actually has a pretty good matchup is because we're such like a long combo. We're able to have a lot of gas and push through those boards. So what I've been finding actually is your first order of business is to potentially try and out their what do you call it? Their link four, because if you have their link four, it turns off that negate in the graveyard. So how are we going to do this? You could potentially you're not going to be able to eclipse it, so I actually sided that out. So eclipsing it is not going to be good. But you could potentially even like use your one of call by to like snipe the negate if you want preemptively and go from there. And that way your plays are quite insulated from like a spell and trap negate. What I'm doing is essentially I'm dropping in. And guys, excuse the lag here. Holy, I'm dropping in my package of thrust and then feather duster. They don't necessarily like land on actual field monsters, I find. It's more of like back row slash it's a very recursive board, so it's like a weird matchup. So this is where like you're gonna take advantage of your board breakers that actually impact the back row, such as your evenly matched, your thrust to search that, as well as your feather duster. I don't know how good Forbidden Droplet is against this matchup, but in theory, what could happen is because they have hand traps, and you might see them like set some stuff additional to their engine traps. So I'd be always paying attention to the traps that they set after they've actually recurred their traps in their combo. Because what ends up happening is you can make the assumption that potentially those traps that were additional to the engine traps that the Malice deck has, they're probably potential impermanences, right? Easy. Game one, just assume it's an imperm, you're probably right. So we can then potentially do is because they still will always have like one or even a couple of more monsters on field that don't actually do very much, but they're still there. You might actually be able to use your Forbidden Droplet game one to ultimately dodge, right? Like the same thing with your mass change. You could potentially like just dodge a couple of their hand traps in their hand or even like that set imperm that they might set. So what I would do is probably something that looks like this. So take out the ash. I don't think it's worth keeping in. If you have Molcharmy Fodros, guys, play that all day and night against that matchup. That card is going to exceptionally, exceptionally cook them ultimately, just because they have to link summon a crazy amount of times for them to actually get anywhere. So I'd highly recommend you do play that card if you have access. For me though, I just don't find like necessarily it's worth like every single matchup just because it is such a wide format. But again, it is the best hand trap in the game, so do take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, I wouldn't even play Eclipse just because you can't flip their links. You might actually put your mass changes back in so that we have 6 cards to dodge some of their hand traps because again, um it's a heavy it's a heavy, what do you call it? Hand trap deck. And then talents, I would probably just kind of not really worry about it. Maybe keep like one copy just to have as a potential thrust target that we can maybe like peek your opponent's hand, rip any more additional hand traps and interrupts once you do clear the board. But you're really banking on your Duster and your evenly matched and your thrust to be able to actually get into those cards and just clear the board, go into main two, establish your board. I recommend you guys establish the board of your basic stuff of like again DPE, Law, Wake Up, Sunrise. You could end on Plasma if you find the line and like you want to actually maybe like out a problematic link. That's also a possibility, but yeah, I mean do what you got. It's going to be different every time. Every game is different. I would feel like the plasma line is it's like a win con against them for sure, but you do run the risk of like I don't know, maybe you get into Beerud or something crazy like that. Turn three, like heading into turn three, so that's also a consideration. The safest bet is just to do your in main two your standard line of play of like DPE law as well as like your wake up and sunrise. If you find that you're actually able to clear a lot of their back row, because I find it is kind of more or less a back row deck than it is like a monster heavy. It's like back row hand traps, more or less. Um, the way I actually will show you guys a combo of how I approach um like breaking boards. Like once a board is broken, like I'll show you guys what I prioritize in terms of cards to be able to essentially like FTK your opponent safely with the assumption that they have hand traps and maybe potential like breakers, such as like Nibiru, which is like a breaker hand trap or whatever. But yeah, going second, I do keep the Neos as well as the favorite contact, just because again, like we're playing breakers here, guys. You're not gonna FTK them under Dark Ruler and evenly matched. Cutting these, going second you better have a solid plan against a deck like Malice, where it's like a crazy amount of hand traps and they have kind of like back row, which is something that Heroes struggles with. You better have a pretty good list to be able to not only break that, but ensure them from actually recurring any of their engine back turn three. Because you will be passing over them, you will let them play, but if the whole premise of a breaker build is you're going to stop them from playing. And we've already come to the conclusion that like heroes can't have a lot of hand traps. One. Two, Malice is just not going to is going to eat those hand traps and keep moving forward. The deck is just very, very resilient to hand traps from what I've been finding. Yeah. So, anyways, long story short, this is how I approach this. Like if we're going second against them, if we're going first, let's actually exit out without saving. Just so that we save our yeah, we go back to where we were. Going first, I would actually keep the Ash Blossoms in case they want to Mulcharmy us. What I do in this deck build is I'll put in the mass changes. I'll put in, I believe, I'm trying to remember my starting patterns. I think 3 thrusts is only going second, but going first, I'll do 2 thrusts. I will do an angel. I do not believe that they play the anima because I believe they're playing, it's called like Ling Karibo. Where is he? Ling Karibo. No, what is this? This guy, yeah. So this one needs a level 4 or lower cyber response. So they do run the Link one, but thankfully they don't run a anima from what I'm seeing. They run this thing just because a lot of the monsters are just cyber. So why would you like have in again textbook deck building theory? Like why would you have the anima if you have a generic Link one that can just work with any of your monsters? That isn't actually defined by like a level one. It's just level 4 or lower. So it's actually even better than anima for them. Another also consideration to keep in mind, guys, if they go this line and they go Link Karibo, be very careful with when you use your favorite contact if you've gone first, because Link Karibo is actually a trap negate. It's kind of insane. Um, it kind of like a lot of good players will use Link Karibo in Malice to almost like shit test their opponent to see what kind of traps they might have up their sleeves that have been set. Very, very scary. It's a small detail, but I got cooked by it. I think I when I was playing like voiceless voice Fiendsmith against Malice, I waited until they linked off into this for some reason. Then I went Tikaboo, and then they were able to out it. I think yeah, negate the card's effect, and if you do banish it, so it actually outs continuous traps as well. So if you're playing Rivalry or I don't know some kind of like Floodgate or something, do not let them have this card on board because they will be able to negate that card's effect and then just banish it, which is really hurtful if it's a continuous trap. Cool. Going back to signing patterns. Going first, we're gonna do this. I find I take out the eclipses and obviously the droplets. Yeah, against Malice, this is what we're gonna do. So ultimately, the way we're thinking about this is we've got cards such as Ash Blossom and Call By to handle Molcharmy. If it's the Perulia, just play through it. You're only going to give your opponent at most one draw if you play correctly. Like if you open with a Hero Lives, you only need to give them one draw off the forest for full combo. If you have to normal your Stratos, I would think twice. Maybe you do interact with the Perulia then, but I would just generally, like if I see Perulia and I see this thing in my hand, the AHL, I'm holding that goddamn Ash Blossom as long as I can just to be as safe as possible from a card such as Molcharmy Fulos. I will potentially like approach this matchup as well in a sense like if they've committed like 1 to 2 hand traps, I might go for the line of Dark Angel because that will definitely take advantage of the fact that they can't out it and they can't use a lot of their spells. The deck uses a lot of utility spells, guys. Malice in the Underground, that's a spell. You can negate and destroy that. They play Allure of Darkness. They can play potential pot cards. They can play Golden Sarcophagus. They do have a fair amount of spells. They also can play Cyanide Mining. Cyanide Mining is a huge, huge card for them to be able to get to Engine as well. So cutting them off, all those spell cards when they don't have a Link 1 is quite key. Because what it means is they have to basically have their 9 engine pieces which by the way are all they're all ignition effect. They're not trigger on summon. So let's actually take a look at them. How do you even spell Malice? Let's see. Underground. I actually don't even know how to spell Malice. This is embarrassing. Oh, two S's. Okay. Malice is two S's. Okay. So for example, if they go Dormouse, which is one of their like top starters, this effect during your main phase, you can activate this effect, right? This is key, guys. This means you have an opportunity to respond on summon. So you can potentially like pop this, and they just wasted their normal summon, and they definitely will not be getting their effect. They'll have to figure out a way to like recur this back or potentially summon something else or use some kind of spell. Like they'll have to like maybe use like a bestial, banish this, pay life, bring this back, then use the effect. Right? It becomes hard. It becomes a lot harder for them to get their effects. So yeah, going first, this is probably my build. You may even like cut the Liquid Soldier or Karibo if you want, just if you want like more cards to dodge stuff. Excuse me. So maybe you put in like one Eclipse. But yeah, generally I'm pretty happy with this list against them. It pretty much covers a lot. Like you've got your Ash from all Charmy. You've got your good end piece, which is your win condition. Called by for a lot of their hand traps. Talents as well as thrust to potentially, if we absolutely need to land on something where our end board is just not that good and we're gonna just completely get outrun, you're gonna thrust for a called Simul Archfiends. I highly recommend this card. This card is probably my favorite trap card, my favorite thrust target this format because it covers all the matchups. It covers Ryzeal, it covers Malice, and it covers just anything else that needs to access the what do you call it? the extra deck. The only deck I don't think it covers is Voiceless Voice. Maybe if they're using like the Fiendsmith variant, then you might cut them off from the Fiendsmith stuff. And that's another thing. Simul Archfiend also is going to cut off the entire Fiendsmith engine if you do thrust into this to protect yourself and turn skip for a turn. Just simply because they're going to go into their Link 1 Fiendsmith Requiem. You will then, well, actually, before that, let's say they go Lori on field, just go Simul Archfiends. Now all of a sudden, the entire Fiendsmith line is just completely locked because they won't be able to go into their Link 1 and they won't be able to use the effect to get into any more of their links essentially. They won't be able to link climb. So it gets quite devastating as well when you're talking about a Fiendsmith Ryzeal deck, for example, which won YCS one Anaheim. Shout out to Triff for that one. Triff actually goes to my locals too, guys. That's the interest. Probably do know him personally. He's a good friend. He's a true friend, so to speak. So what's gonna happen is with Simul, you're getting so much value in cutting off a lot of these main engines that have just really running rampant in the format. So yeah, this is what it looks like going first. So yeah, we covered going second and going first for this deck. Awesome. Let's do now Ryzeal, then we'll just get into the combo component of the video. So we'll get into Ryzeal. Against Ryzeal, so again, we have really good cards against Ryzeal just because let's say you do see the Ash Blossom in this build. And if you are running like hand traps, I don't know if a lot of people are nowadays, but I know some people still do. If you guys just see Duo Drive, that's going to be your choke point because Duo Drive is going to essentially mean that they're no longer getting access to their Ryzeal Cross, which is a monster negate on res, which means in any given resolving chain of cards, they can pick and choose what Ryzeal Cross is going to negate because it's an on-res negation effect and it doesn't even activate. It just inherently will negate. Uh, Quite devastating, but the good news is with Ryzeal, they only run this at one, maybe two in their deck, which means cutting off their Ryzeal Duo Drive is going to be quite important here in terms of making sure that they don't get access to their plugin, their Ryzeal plugin, as well as their Ryzeal Cross. Another aspect to also keep in mind, folks, if you are going first and you do have like some kind of established board, yes, you were able to manage through their hand traps, they go Duo Drive and you do not have the hand traps, their on summon effect is to add a Xyz from the graveyard. You will, I'm trying to think about this. Depending on what they're grabbing at the grave, like let's say it's a Mirror Logic aggregator, like they're able to get like a Mirror Logic in the grave somehow, like you didn't let end on law per se, then you'd want to pop it right there because what that means is you're stopping them from grabbing the Mirror Logic aggregator, which can be used as it's not a once per turn negate for your board. So let's take a look at Mirror Logic aggregator. Yeah, if this card, oh no, you can only use each effect of Mirror Logic aggregator once per turn. Okay, so it is once per turn. I was incorrect there. So what I would do if I landed on DPE, and again, just talking theory here, um, what I would do is just be wary of the Mirror Logic card, Mirror Logic aggregate, but then when they try to use the secondary effect, which is ignition, so you have to declare it after the summon. So it's not on summon, it's after the summon. The card needs to detach to be able to resolve. It doesn't detach for cost, so you can actually just DPE this thing or pop it with your engine quite easily. The benefit of this is they now just committed two of their Ryzeal engine monsters, and they don't play this thing. They don't play Palm. They play just these, like one of this, and then three of this, three of this, three X, three ice, and three sword. If you do that, you've now stopped their once per turn effect just because it can't resolve properly because the card needs to detach to be able to resolve correct. So if you popped it, they don't get their draws. They won't have access to their cross and to their plugin. The other thing to also keep in mind in this matchup, ladies and gents, is they have a card called Exiton. Yeah, this thing. So this is going to be their best friend if they're going second to actually use their engine pieces to board break. My recommendation is when they go two bodies, you probably want to prioritize your Neos wingman line first just to clear the board. Because they're gonna have to have used a couple of effects to get those level four bodies. Because when they go for this thing on board, this thing is just gonna run amok against your full combo, right? It's gonna be quite problematic. So it says once per chain during your main phase, if your opponent or in your opponent's battle phase, if your opponent has more cards in their hand and field, so you add them up, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, destroy all other cards on the field. Kind of crazy, this thing. This thing's is a little bit of a menace. So I'd be very careful of this card because it's also not once per turn, it's once per chain, and they only have to detach one. So in theory, they'll have two of these board wipes against you going second. In general, you see two bodies, just out them both. Our deck can do that very easily. Um, and then yeah, you have your DPE pop as well. So it's not bad. I think post Supreme Darkness, the matchup gets even better because you'll have things such as super polymerization that you'll be able to access. You'll also have things such as maybe like your Neos Lord that you could potentially use to like steal their monsters or fuse them off. In theory as well, if you're gonna play the trap, which is Dark Supremacy. Dark Supremacy, where is it? There it is. It's an OCG card. In theory, you could also use this to just let them go Exciton. Don't waste your pops. Let them go Exciton, Supreme Dark Supremacy it. Because it's a once per chain card, which means they can't chain it again as chain through your Dark Supremacy. Ultimately meaning that now you can freely just interact by popping and destroying the rest of their Ryzeal engine when you do CFIS. So if they go another two bodies, they're gonna run the one Exciton. So let them go the two bodies. They're gonna go dual drive, interact with DP on the activation of the ignition effect. So that way the once per turn is gone and they don't get their draws. And then if they decide to do any kind of shenanigans with their level four plays after the fact, just at that point, wait until you see two bodies, two level four bodies, pop those with Neo Swingman. That should be game. The other aspect against this matchup as well that's a little bit different from Malice is your Dark Law. I think your Dark Law has to be part of your end board against this matchup, just because you're going to shut them off a lot of their inherent special summons. So the Ryzeal cards, particularly X Ryzeal, needs to send to grave from the extra deck to be able to actually summon itself. So if they actually have this in hand, they're holding it, guess what? They're gonna have to normal summon this, then use its effect. If this card is normal special summon, you get to add. But they won't be able to go send Mirror Logic, negate something like your DPE or like try to interact with something on your board to be able to like make it a hard time for you. It's not going to be the case. So yeah, just food for thought. Like Shifter in essence does sort of hurt Ryzeal, not entirely, but it does shut down some of those like niche interactions and those kind of worrisome cards that just kind of like come out of nowhere with the Ryzeal decks because it's a lot like Sprite. It just inherently specials from the hand. Some tech options as well for this deck for heroes. Like if you have Molt Charming Perulia going second, probably play that in. Like I do have access to it. I'm just not playing it in this list. It's a great card against them. You're gonna draw into so much engine. They're gonna probably just go Detonator Pass. Give you two draws, go Detonator, and just hold their hand traps. And that'll be that. But yeah, let's go over now the just the deck and how you're supposed to interact with them. Your Eclipse and your Droplet are just going to be crucial cards to be able to stop their detonator. If you stop their detonator, now all you have to do is just navigate through their what do you call it? Hand traps. The amazing thing about Eclipse and Droplet against detonator and how they interact with it is I believe if an XYZ monster you control would be destroyed by a battle card effect, you can detach one material from this card instead. So this is key, right? This means that like if you had a like I don't know if anyone's playing these cards, but like Tempai, for example, before it got completely shafted by the ban list, they were playing a lot of like Raigekis, Dark Holes, things like that. This has that inherent protection as we saw with Kashtira Shangira. This doesn't activate This just sends inherently and protects. It doesn't even activate. So like let's say you're banking on like, I don't know, destroying and then going talents to like steal. Doesn't work because this inherently protects itself, just like Kestir or Shangira. Now, with something like Droplet or Eclipse, they're going to need to have the out to these cards, which is not going to come in the form of Ryzeal Cross because this is a monster negate. They're going to need to have the out to these cards such as Ash Blossom or like a Solemn. I don't know, game one. Who's I don't think anybody's doing that. I don't know, maybe like a what's that Omni negate from hand? Psy-frame, like Psy-frame Gamma and whatnot. They're gonna have to have like some really niche stuff to out these cards. So what I would actually do against them is commit some of my plays, like AHL, then go into like Stratos, go Stratos effect response. They're gonna go, I don't know, chain imperm. Then I would go Eclipse. Because what would happen here, guys, is you're essentially testing your opponent, right? You already are under the assumption that you have the out to their detonator, which is gonna essentially three pops. You're gonna out their you're gonna try to maximize your hand economy by going field effect, add, dump, whatever, like violent dump, whatever. Then you chain your eclipse or your droplet to dodge something. Always. They're going to have hand traps. Believe me, they're going to have cards in their hand to interact with you. Good players are also going to say Stratos. They're going to read it and be like, oh, he's just trying to add. Like, the card doesn't really do anything else. Like, there's no point in wasting a detonator detach, right? When they can keep all three of their detaches to be able to pop other stuff. Like, for example, like your increase in the back row. So we're trying to essentially stop that line of play from getting popped by detonator. Because if we go increase or violent and then they pop it, we're missing out on, well, one, the ability to get to violent in the first place, but two, our ability to actually ignition effect search polymerization. So always, 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 you're gonna go AHL, Stratos or Stratos, effect, response. You got anything? They're gonna go Veiler, Imperm, some nonsense. Then you go Eclipse. Then you go your Droplet. Then you want to use any of these like six heavy cards to try to out the stuff. Another pro tip as well, maybe consider like if you ever like have the call by going second, you can go like chain call by if like they're imperming, then you go droplet. Now all of a sudden your droplet is you're getting more value because you're activating your call by. You're using it for cost for droplet 'cause it can be on field in the chain, and then you're also removing your Stratos off the field to be able to continue facilitating your plays. Awesome. So that's how I'd approach it. Let's talk about siding patterns against them. So again, this is our list, first and second. Going first, I would go again. Um, Two Thrust, Samul again is just going to be a phenomenal card. They won't get to if they see you thrust for this, they're going to have two options. They're going to either go dual drive add, and then they won't make any more. What do you call it? XCs, which is going to be stupid. What they're really gonna do if they're smart is just go detonator pass hand traps. Like you want to put them in a mode where they're on detonator pass hand traps because we can out the detonator no problem. It's that card's very very fragile, right? It's and once that's outed, we're going to use our engine and on engine to be able to basically interact through the rest of their hand traps. That's all it is, guys. Just literally trying to play to the presumption of the hand traps. Because we already confirmed that, like, if we draw any of these six cards, such as the Droplet or the Eclipse, what this means is we're dodging a hand trap definitively, and we're going to out their detonator. We're going to absolutely out this. If they go like chain four or like chain three, detonator pop, Stratos, it doesn't matter. You don't care. You don't even need the body on field most of the time. You're going to have so much engine in your hand, anyways. That's just the nature of heroes. Um, awesome. Cool. So yeah, I would do that. Two thrusts, put your mass changes in because ultimately there's the better eclipse at dodging if you know you're going first. I would go Angel. They don't run the lengths. Rivalry. Oh, play Rivalry, guys. That's a really good one. I believe like Pyro and then Thunder. Yeah, they're Pyros and Thunders. Yeah, two Pyros and then three Thunders, and this one's just unplayable. Palm Ryzeal just they don't play it. So it's half and half. This is gonna cut their engine in half, guys. This is gonna be one of those cards that like you just set it and you can just kind of like survive. You just chill, you let them kind of play, especially like if they go um like they go for the Thunder lines first, like I don't know, they go sword first. Joke's on them. They're never gonna be able to get to X to like dump Mirror Logic and negate the rivalry. Be careful though, just because they can still get to Exciton, like the field wipe, and try to like out it that way. But yeah, just in general, their cards are gonna lock them to rank 4 XC. So what happens is it's just like, you know, um, yeah, it doesn't. It's gonna be very hard for them to start going about their XC's plays. So cool. Going first, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep the ashes. We're gonna take out the eclipses. Maybe like keep one or just none. We'll fill up by the Liquid Soldier or Winkribo. I think you have the opportunity. I had one game against Ryzeal guys. They literally had 4 hand traps. It was like Droll, Ash, Imperm, Lancia, and then one card starter. So be mindful, like you're gonna need cards like these and like Rivalry to kind of just outgrind them because if they commit an entire hand of 4 hand traps and you don't get anywhere, which you probably won't, but you still sit on this, you're probably winning just because all you'd have to do now is just top deck any engine like Fusion Destiny, Hero Lives, Stratos, Ferris, whatever. We have so many cards. So yeah, I would do this, and then I would probably we need to take out one more. Let's take out what are we taking out here, guys? Yeah, I think in Malice we didn't play the rival because it's all Cybers, so that makes sense. Honestly, I might take out the Liquid. Just keep Stratos, or even just like keep Liquid, take out one Stratos. I'm fine with 2 Stratos, but in reality, I think this is probably better. Um, oh shoot! I just saved the deck as the main. Oh darn. All good. Going second, very clean approach as well. We're gonna go Dark Ruler. Keep your droplets in. You're gonna keep your eclipses in. You're gonna keep your evenlies in. Oh, beautiful. Then also put in your Feather Duster just because going second, this ultimately means actually let's do this. 2 thrusts, 1 talents, because talents potentially could actually steal their detonator and start blowing up their field. Like that could be quite crazy. I'd probably side out the ashes. Like the odds of just seeing the one to take care of a duo drive is just very unlikely. I would take out the call by. In theory, you might be able to use rivalry as a board breaker going second, but I find it's just very risky. So we're gonna side that out. And then wow, we got a lot in here that we get to take out. Holy. We'll go back to the one mass change. Maybe drop to 1 Stratos because we really want to see that non-engine. Let's see here. I low key think Eclipse and Droplet are better than Dark Ruler because let's just do this. Keep one Dark Ruler so it's a thrust target. Yeah, we'll do this. This is nice because now you've got 6 outs to their monsters, including like their Bakuska, wherever they end on. You also have evenly to just take care of everything. You have your thrusts, which are like flex spots, and you have also like a talents just for versatility. Like you maybe use this to like see their hand, check hand traps. Because again, like the threat here really is their hand traps. It's not their end board, in my opinion. If you have one of these, you're clapping their entire board. Like the Kuska detonator is all gone if you have Eclipse as well as a droplet. It doesn't matter at that point. It really is hand drops. Like the whole success behind Ryzeal and like these Malice decks, guys, they're very mid-rangey and they're very recursive when it comes to their engine. Awesome. Cool. Let's exit this. No, we don't want to save. Let's go back to the deck constructor. So I feel like I messed up my deck a little bit. That's okay. So this here is let me see. Let me fix this up. I want to go into my deck and just actually show you the combo against Ryzeal, like how to actually break into boards. Oh, before I forget, we're also still keeping Neos and favorite context just because again, if you're gonna go Dark Ruler, like what's your end board? DPE Law? They can out that. Like they actually could. So you want to have more higher ceiling to your end board to be able to take care of turn three. Cool. So rivalry there. Almost done. Take out one more. It's this one. Something's off here. We're missing a card. Liquid Soldier. Okay. Let's get into the duel room. We're gonna do solo. We bricked. Can't do shit here. You're gonna literally set like two pass. Maybe keep the Eclipse one in hand. Let's see going second what happens. Oh, we got Fusion Destiny. Okay, interesting. Here you're only playing against like a full Ryzeal board is like Fusion Destiny, and then it's risky. If you're opening up with just this, it's hard. But we have the Eclipses and like droplet to out stuff. So in theory, whenever you see Fusion Destiny, you're gonna go Fusion Destiny and say, okay, you got any response? They say no, they don't have Ash. You can Eclipse, boom, Grave, Grave, Grave. Now they can't respond with monsters or spells. Boom, clap the whole thing. And then you're gonna go oh, these two. So same thing. Like if you're going first or second, we obviously won't resolve the droplet going first. You'll go like this. This is your just your Fusion Destiny board, folks. I never liked the conversations on the Facebook group where it's like, oh, we gotta cut Fusion Destiny to two. No, we're not cutting it to two, guys. It's literally engine. It's like a board breaker. Like, why would you? That's so ridiculous. We'll go across. Effect here, you're gonna always target your denier because if they bestial it, you at least have your Mally that's live that you can potentially bring out and search with it. Sorry guys, we threw it back into the deck. Okay. If they haven't hand trapped you here, I would just go straight for the plasma because you can just recur bodies quite easily back. Like for example, you could have had this on board and then you banish, bring out the mouse again, guys. Mally's at three, free up. Our boy's at three. So you always keep your denier here if you want to absolutely respect draw because you haven't been hand trapped to death, and they might be actually on draw. You can go like this, you add that, right? Then you go your DP, your thing again, banish it. Now at this point you would have like two here and banishment. And now all of a sudden, if they draw you, it doesn't matter because it's under one search. If you're feeling greedy, you would have added off this, sending the denier a Stratos than your normal Stratos. And the benefit of that is you have more gas in the graveyard, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you're seeing they're not really hand trapping you, after you like clap their board with like a droplet or eclipse or whatever, or a breaker, add once, just live to tell the tale. Trust me, guys. They do play draw. They absolutely do. And there you go. Then you can just like steal something, boom. And now we've also got like good follow up potentially because our Destiny heroes are in grave. We got a pop, we got a skill drain. We also have some other non-engine or whatever that looks like. So in theory, that's how it would work. Let's reset everything. Cool, and then we'll draw. Okay. I like this hand because it's going to show us a couple of things. It's going to show us how to actually prioritize how we should be thinking about going first. Here, what I would do is I would not go Rhoda Stratos. I'd go Foolish Burial. Here's why. If you go Foolish Burial and they ash this or they ash the Mist, then what you can do is just go Stratos or just normally Revile. Um, it's not the best hand, that one. It's kind of like awkward, but like it comes up. No, not this one. I'll show you guys what I mean. Like some hands you want to insulate your Vion. So no, this hand again, you just normal the Vion, then your Fusion Destiny is your backup. Let's see what else we can get. Oh, this one's again awkward. Here, that one you would just do Stratos Vion, then Fusion Destiny. Okay, we got a brick hand. Oh, guys, it's not looking good. Okay, this is a good one. So this one, what I would actually do, insulate. We have the insulate from hand trap. We're gonna go AHL. We did draw the one of mass change, but post side, you're gonna see three of them, which is very key. You'll go like this. You'll say no effect, opponent, no effect. Then you go law. And then your Shadow Mist now adds. Now all of a sudden, what you're insulated from is like Droll, Veiler, Ogre, which is really nice. Especially post side, you don't want to get trolled. I had one round against like I think it was like a Malice player. He had like two Drolls. That's it. Cooked right there. I went full combo. He got cooked. Again, we go back to the idea that like, yeah, sure, some of the matchups may not be good with Law, but you're protecting yourself. You're still getting a whole lot of value that otherwise you wouldn't if you know, you went like just Stratos add Mally, and then you attempt to go Forest, dump Mally. Well, now you're drolled. Now the best you're gonna end on with this hand is DPE Cross Crusader, which is not good. And then there's this set called by. One thing to also be careful about, guys, when you do have the call by, you might want to risk not going the law lines because you can potentially just clap a call by and get a sense of their hand economy. Like if they committed a hand trap, there's gonna be a lot less hand trap and a lot less engine when they do go when they proceed after you, right? If you're going first. Cool. Yeah, hopefully I'm giving you guys some insights here. I wanted to just show like how you would actually break into word. Yeah, okay, this is perfect. Let's go. They went like this is a beautiful hand going second against Ryzeal. Here's why, guys. They're gonna go duo drive. We're gonna ash the duo drive, right? Okay, so now their board is literally hand traps, detonator. Here's what you're gonna do. And this is that's a beautiful hand. You're gonna go normal to Stratos. You're gonna normal to Stratos. They're gonna commit a hand trap. They're gonna go Veiler, Imperp, some nonsense. They're gonna go Eclipse. Boom. They better have the item. They better have Ash Blossom. So what happened here, right? What happened here is if they do commit their Ash, your thing won't get set, and then your Stratos gets clapped by the hand trap. But it's no problem because now we can continue playing with this. Let's say in theory we had another card. I mean, we technically do. If it was like this, let's say this brick was Fusion Destiny, then we're cooking. Because then what you could potentially do is you can go Fusion Destiny, again, just thinking out loud, pop the Nader, then all of a sudden now you've insulated your increase line and it allows you to go Plasma, clear the board, you take with Plasma, and then now you're able to go into battle, you clear some stuff, you pass back because you won't be able to kill them under Plasma usually, and then your DP comes back the following turn. This is why when I saw online, when people were saying, yeah, I side out the Plasma, I side out the what do you call it? So people are saying, oh, I want to side out the Plasma, I want to side out the Neos and the Trap going second. I would beg to differ. Because what happens is if you do not kill them, if you're not able to break their board and then proceed to OTK, what's going to happen is ultimately you've now just lost because they will recur their engine back, unlike Heroes. Like Heroes is a hard time recurring their engine back. But where Ryzeal doesn't struggle with is recurring back their engine once they get their plays going. Same with Malice, same thing. Same as with any modern deck, really. So if you're not thinking about a way to actually insulate yourself and stop their follow-up, then you're actually in for a really tough time. So do not cut these. Don't cut these post side when you're siding stuff out. It doesn't make sense. You're literally saying that like, although Heroes is like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to rogue decks, you're saying that I want to go back to like the 2020 format where we didn't even have the favorite contact and Neos engine as addition to the ceiling of the deck. That's literally what you're telling me. You're telling me is I want to play from a deck from like 2020 against a deck with like one card starters that can have like a handful of like four hand traps and then one card full combo card for their engine. And you want to play like a deck that's like designed back in 2020. Because let's get real, guys. Heroes does not have one card combos other than like Fusion Destiny and maybe like AHL. Maybe. What you get isn't even that great in comparison to what the modern decks do. Don't sign these out. It doesn't make sense. Your plasma as well. Again, we talked about a way where like just now. So again, they landed on detonator. Let's say they had a set imperm and ash, right? So this gets imperm, this gets ash, no problem. Let's say this is your fusion destiny. Boom. I know it's a cracked hand, but bear with me, guys. I know. It's only like in our dreams that this would happen. We're gonna go fusion destiny because they committed their ash blossom. Boom. And now all of a sudden, because we did resolve the ash and we did stop the cross from coming out, there's probably no cross. You can literally just use your DPE again. Reason why you need to have three fusion destinies, not two. You're gonna go pop the detonator. Here it'll probably interact with this, but now it doesn't matter because we're gonna go this, and then we've got engine, and we've also got Faras into the increase. What I would actually do here is just go the vision line, boom, 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 eat up a couple more hand traps. Let's see if we get, I don't know, a couple more hand traps. But anyways, in the end, what would happen is this got popped by Nader because they want to like maximize their effects. And the reason you want to pop the Nader, guys, is because it's gonna have mirror logic under it potentially if they use their X Ryzeal. So you don't want them to like potentially like detach, pop, and then negate with the mirror logic aggregator. So here what would happen is you just land on like your DPE. Where's our DPE? There it is. I'd have to show you guys like the combo under Plasma. To get to Plasma, we just sort of did it. And then you get into this. And then you steal something that might have like something left over on the board, like a duo driver or what. You don't even need anything really. Maybe you'll have like another additional monster because if you want to like keep the TPE on board, but usually what you'll do is just pop the TPE. They can't get over this. They're going to need to like get bodies on board and then go uh like Xyz plays, but always try guys to go for this board. And I want to like just end the video on this. If you go on this, somehow crack their board and still end up on like something like this, maybe. Like law, DPE, and then maybe like your trap. This is nice because this means you're stopping a lot of those like inherent cards that just come out of nowhere, like the Mirror Logic Aggregate from the extra or anything like that. You're shutting down their graveyards, you're shutting down more hand traps, you're hurting Ryzeal to an extent. Not so much Malice, but again, I've seen even Malice players try to go Ultimate Slayer. They can't use Ultimate Slayer under Shifter, it doesn't work. Something like this is even better because here now we're saying we can like destroy their material, banish it, then law is a rip one, and it's insulating us from graveyard effects. So this is always going to be a lot less fragile than like this, right? I think you guys get the picture. Anyways, hope you guys like this video. Yeah, this is the list that I'm on now. Let's go back to it. This is the list. I've also got my list post Supreme Darkness, the competitive one. Well, actually, sorry, let's not think about it. This is like the full blown one, like the pile. I probably would fit. I won't fit in Ash into the 51, but I think I fit Ash. Yeah, I fit Ash into the more competitive one, which makes sense. And then maybe I need to like side the Foolos instead of like evenly mash or like Dark Ruler or something. Anyways, yeah, those are the lists. Like, comment, subscribe, guys. I'm gonna bounce at this point. This definitely was definitely not 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. There's just a lot of nuances with the deck that you guys need to know and the interactions with like the latest meta. Hope you guys like it. Yeah, let me know if you guys want the list that I'm thinking about post Supreme Darkness, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you.